Barry, it's so great to see you. Really, really,
You
really
too.
is. Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
It did so much for me. It took me back to kind of when I watched the original film for the
Mm,
first time. I love the new songs.
hmm
It looks incredible. I
Thank
literally
you.
my jaw was on the floor for
Thank
the
you.
entire film. Congrats.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we. I say we. It's all the same folks who made Moonlight, Bill Street, all those films. We were excited to play with a new set of tools and
Yeah.
just like a bigger sort of like scale scope,
Hmm.
and yet still have all the same intimate character to character, person to person, or I guess animal to animal,
Yeah.
sort of like feelings. That small stuff of drama, and yet just on this like massive scale.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you because I heard that you originally were like, no, it's not for me. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were convinced
Well,
to do
it wasn't even convinced.
it.
I was just I didn't read it.
Yeah.
I just some completely compartmentalized. This is not a film that I'm going to make.
Yeah.
But then once I read it, I just saw so many things. And then when I watched the 2019 film, honestly, because that film came out while we were making the Underground Railroad, so I just had no space to
Yeah.
watch anything. But when I watched it, I thought the technology was very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And I guess it's that thing as a director, isn't it? You want
Hmm
to find things that are outside your comfort zone or that are going to push you, that are, that might not well be on that kind of
hmm
path that you think you're kind of destined to go down. It's healthy, isn't it, to kind of to
It
challenge
is.
yourself.
You don't think so at first. It's
Yeah,
quite
it's terrifying.
yeah, it's quite scary once you take that first step. But a really good friend of mine said to me way back, even before I made Moonlight, she said, Barry, it might be good for you to start doing some things that you're not good at. Just to keep your brain fresh.
Yeah.
And directorially, this was a thing that I just had no experience making a movie this way.
Yeah.
And so it was really nice to have that first, like 12 to 14 months where you're just like drowning. Like, what the hell am I doing? What is all this? But then it's like learning a language. When you learn a new language, at first it's about just understanding that language, and then you begin expressing yourself the way you would in any language.
Yeah.
And so that was what this process was.
And I know how important music is to
Hmm
you in terms of your storytelling. We've
hmm
talked about it in the past. This is again, this is a totally different beast.
It is, yeah.
I was so lucky to chat to Lynn last week
Oh, cool.
about his kind of incredible work on it in the original songs and
hmm
working with you, but then also working with Dave and Nick as well
hmm
and Le Boheme.
Yep.
It's a great what a great kind of cast of
Yeah.
music you
hmm
have there as well. What was the starting point for you with the music in terms of
hmm
kind of navigating what it was going to be, but also
hmm
what you were going to bring to it?
Yeah,
With
it was a couple of things. The first part was, with something like The Lion King, it's existed for 30 years, iconic, transcends, borders of culture, of language. There's a sound,
yeah,
and that sound is a part of the DNA of how people form such an intimate relationship to the characters, to the story. And so those sounds are going to be a part of it. So intellectually, it was about, okay, but a lot of this movie is taking place before. What are the sounds that gave birth to those sounds?
yeah,
So that's part one. Then it's a musical. And so there's going to be songs. How does dramatic storytelling, how does that play nice, with the incursion of these songs? And typically in a musical, the songs come first
yeah,
and the narrative folds around that. Just because of the timing, we had the opposite situation where we were headlong making the film, and then when Lynn became available, he came in to make the songs. But there was something really beautiful in that process, and that Lynn was really great about finding ways, and I'm sure he said this to you, of how can I aid the storytelling? How
yeah,
can the songs be a part of the narrative organically and not distracting from it? How can the song service the film and not the other way around? The last part of it was I went and saw the Broadway musical by Julie Taymor, which also involved Dave Metzger, Le Boheme. And I just thought that the way she grounded the soundscape of The Lion King and the continent of Africa was just really powerful. And I knew this film wanted to be that way as well. And so Nick and I actually got together with Labo here in London. We went over to Abbey Road with this like South African gospel choir. And I like to call it almost like a Greek chorus, but it's a South African chorus where throughout the film, you'll hear these almost rhythmic chants sort of in the backing of these scenes. And to me, that was about just allowing Lebo and Nick the space. I would describe a scene, what was happening, and then Lebo would just like riff with Nick, like on the spot. And so all these chants you hear throughout the film came out of those sessions.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool stuff. Really
That's
cool.
almost like kind of in terms of it's the landscape, isn't it? It's
It
almost
is.
kind of very much part of kind of it's one of the things, I think, the most important things that takes us into the environment that the film is set.
And that's a really good point, because what you realize when you really start working on this, like in a tunnel vision kind of way, The Lion King is in some ways the first time that children encounter the continent of Africa, you
Yeah.
know, or the cultures of Africa. And I think having the sound,
Yeah.
literally the voice of the continent, be a part of the piece, it's a part of that landscaping. As you say, it's a part of building the atmosphere of the environment.
I think that's it's so interesting you said that, because I think as well that first film as well, for me, it was like the first experience of a film like that for children. You know, it's a multi-generational film,
Exactly.
but telling a story of grief, telling a story of empathy, and such a brilliant way to tell children and let them experience that through something that feels safe and comfortable.
Yeah, I was talking to a filmmaker friend of mine, Janixa Bravo, last night, and I was saying how the same thing, you know, The Lion King's the first time children get to experience some really complex emotions, the main one of which is, you know, what it might be like to lose a parent,
Yeah.
you know, and the trauma that comes with that. And she was like, yeah, but those aren't complex children emotions. Those are just complex emotions, you know.
Yeah.
Those are very adult emotions that you're dealing with in the story format. And we have the same thing. You have this character, and I love, for 30 years we've known Mufasa. It's just like this perfect leader, the perfect father, the perfect everything. And then you see he has PTSD, you know? He's like, he has aquaphobia. I heard someone describe it. You know, the guy's afraid of water because of this really biblical thing that happens to him. And he has to overcome this sort of almost like deficit of just place, this deficit of self-possession, you know, this deficit of self-worth. It's a really interesting thing for children to talk about with their
Yeah.
parents, because they've only known this character as one way. I think in a way it might bring them closer to him, which I think is a really lovely thing.
It's also that brilliant thing that the music does, because I love how the balance that you have in the film of the new but also the familiar that we all know,
Yes.
you know, and how that's so subtly but brilliantly weaved into it. And you find that musically it kind of it appears before you even realize, in a way, and physically can, like, you feel yourself welling up and you go, it's because of that cue.
Yeah.
It's because of that theme that you've brought back that I remember from
Yeah.
that. It makes me want to well up talking about it.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
It's a really powerful tool, but like most powerful tools, it can be a blessing
Be
and a
careful.
curse. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was really about, I mean, look, for 30 years, people have had such an intimate relationship with these characters and these sounds, as you're describing. And so you want to use them as appropriately, as
Yeah.
tastefully as possible. And yet there's no doubting that that's a part of the DNA of so much, you know, of the emotion of this piece. And so we did try to be very judicious with it, but we also tried to have those sounds emerge out of sounds that were organically a part of the bedrock of this film
Yeah.
and this story that we're telling right now. And so sometimes you're right, you don't catch the melody until it's already
Yeah.
sort of like it's already inside the sound or the space, the feeling that you've been swept up into, and then it just clicks, you know? It's a really powerful tool. Yeah.
You're very clever.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
No, you know, I work with clever people. You know?
And the new songs are really great. Like you say, that kind of the what they add to the narrative. With I Always Wanted a Brother, but I love Mads and Bye Bye.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of kind of villains, kind of, you know, should have kind of they need that kind of almost eccentricity, that performance, that
Exactly.
ability to kind of
Exactly.
and that, I mean, that must have been a lot of fun to work with him on that.
It was fun. We found this video of Mads like on some sort of like variety show in his early 20s, and he's like doing ballet and singing with a top hat. And we were shocked to see like this guy who's like the most villainous villain that ever villained, you know, now he's like singing and dancing on Top of the Pops. And so we knew he could do it. And we also did that word eccentricity that you
Yeah.
used was really important because this character is a little scary. And we thought, how can we make him more delicious, than
Yeah,
terrifying?
yeah.
And it was through, as Lynn describes, this reggaeton dance hall, sort of like Bond villain. So the theme song, which Matt carries off so well, because I think that, with all the songs in this film, it's always about what is this adding to the narrative?
Yeah.
And I think allowing that character to express somewhat his worldview or somewhat the reasons for his animus, I thought were very important because so many of these characters, they all kind of want the same thing, but they want it for different reasons. And there was no reason why we couldn't allow this character, Kyros, to express what he wanted and his reasons as well, in just a very fun way.
Yeah, and there's got to be that thing as well, like with the casting of it, is you they need to deliver on the vocal performance of
For
it,
sure, yeah.
both in terms of the speaking, but also the kind of singing side of it as
And,
well.
and you know what? It didn't occur to me. I just didn't. I mean, all credit to Lynn. I didn't give a shit, about how well anybody could sing.
Yeah.
I just figured these are wonderful people if they're
Of course
communicating
they
the
can sing.
emotions. Well, but it wasn't something that I thought about. It was only after we had cast them that I realized, oh, and all these people theoretically, have to sing. And Lynn's such a brilliant guy, and he works with this wonderful sort of like vocal coach named Kirk Crowley, who works on all the singing parts
Yeah.
with Lynn, and he just got in there, and they just found the perfect register for everyone's voice. I thought it's really lovely. I think when we're directing people and editing people, we're also trying to find, let's put the actors in a position to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to have this character screaming and shouting if they express themselves more clearly when they're being more subtle and nuanced and intimate. The same thing, we're not going to have Mads Mikkelsen, singing, these sort of like a cappella, like high notes. No, we're going to let him growl and prowl and prance.
Yeah.
So I think Lynn did a really great job, Lynn and Kurt, of figuring out, okay, what is the best way to place these voices in a position to win in song?
Yeah. Just before we finish up, I just wanted to say, I guess, thank you and congratulations on After Sun,
Oh, thank you.
because I think someone like you being so supportive to new filmmakers like Charlotte is so important and can make the world of difference, in
Yeah.
terms of confidence, giving them the kind of, you can do this kind of
Yeah.
thing. And that was just the most phenomenal film.
Yeah, that was one of the nobody's talked about that in relation to Mufasa, but yeah, we made that film while making this film.
No.
Of course.
Oh my God, you forget how long it takes to make these.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Been working on this film for 4 years, and for this movie, because there's so many visual effects, we built a theater. We have our own movie theater where we watch every single shot to approve how
Yeah.
it'll look in a theater. Every shot as it finishes, but we also have an edit suite in that same theater, and so Charlotte could come, sit in our theater, watch her rough cut in a movie theater, get feedback, and just go. And that was a movie where you had to watch the entire movie to figure out the rhythm of the edit. I remember the opening of that film came from a note given by the editor of this film, Joy McMillan, about opening with a montage of all the videos. And here's a full circle. I met Charlotte's mom last night. She came to see this at the premiere, and her brother. Charlotte Wells is a part of the family. That movie, I think, is a part of the same quilt of Moonlight, of Beale Street, of Mufasa. Yeah, it's one of those really lovely things. Doing work like this allows us the space, the breadth to support someone like Charlotte Wells, your countrywoman. So yeah, very cool to give her a shout out. And very lovely to talk about that in relationship to this.
We're very proud of her.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, what
Me
a
too.
film. Yeah.
I saw her a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, let's get
What's
back.
next?
Let's
Yeah.
get back in the
Yeah.
saddle. Yeah.
Excited for what's next from you as well.
Thank you.
This is I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad you did it because you've created something really
I
special.
am as well. I am
Yeah.
as well.
Thanks, Barry. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you.